in this meeting. This is the sixth out of 7 live sessions. We have one more to go, and weeks 6 and 7 are reserved for. These would be like reading days if you were having an examination, all right? And the 7th week would be the examination. But this is a project-based course. So what we're doing is we will be taking all of the, you might need to mute for a moment there, Larry.
Oh, sorry.
That's quite all right. We love the banter in the background very much. Okay. Larry is at an undisclosed location in an airport somewhere, so we'll not disclose it. but Larry raised. You may have to unmute again. Larry raised a really good point in the pre-meeting fellowship we just had. What happens when? And the example was the copper mine. It's an old anaconda mine. In Chile, it was 2010, I believe, collapsed, and all of this private company aid came to their aid in Chile. Where does that appear on a balance sheet? And I was talking a little bit about, where Rio Tinto was there, for example, but Rio Tinto is already in Chile, so that's okay. And Pemex went there with equipment from Mexico. From our United States contribution, the main one, as I recall, was Freeport McMoran. I'm very familiar with that company.
Then you had a couple of universities that donated engineering professors,
right,
who were working on state-of-the-art and untested drilling equipment and drilling aids, seismic tools, gauge measuring, angle measurement tools that have never been used in the field. And so, we've been talking a lot about finance in this class from a big picture CFO level. And Chris, my question was like, how does that fall on the CFOs? Like, balance sheet, like how's that input, output, like those work from private to private?
Right. And a lot of it is would be treated and is treated as technology transfer. And those will pop up mainly on the so-called intangible side of the balance sheet of the fixed assets. They will be treated in depreciation. Amazingly, and this is the other piece of this. In the United States, they would be given a super exemption. So for every $100 of value, you get a $200 exemption on your corporate taxes. It works that, and then you can carry that forward 10 years. Okay, that's how that would work for doing the service that on the surface is absolutely humanitarian, but is also, in this case, as you mentioned, technology development, which is an R&D function, which is depreciated immediately. But again, they got to carry that forward. And the reason they were paid to carry it forward through the exemption business, who else was there? Calpine was there, who was just bought up by Constellation in Baltimore. Calpine and Conoco was there because they're doing offshore and so on. So using those technologies to get these miners out. They were also given shares in the mine. Okay, so you can imagine that goes on the asset side. What was the other thing that I recall? And it was a complex leveraged leasing vehicle on the finance side that governed the whole operation. So they were there on good auspices. The only piece I don't know exactly how it worked out was the insurance piece. Everybody had to have cover, and property and casualty. That's property and casualty writ really large, uh, and all sorts of things. The technology transfer laws out of OFAC in the U.S. Treasury wiped away for the moment. Okay, to get this job done. But you know what it was run through was USAID, the now defunct agency. USAID has always been an arm, just like ExxonMobil is an arm of diplomacy, of our relationships with foreign entities. So, what was the name of the uh, ExxonMobil CEO who became Secretary of State? Yeah, I can't remember. But 3-4 administrations ago, uh, because they effectively, when they do the agreements, which are basically treaties with countries, when the oil companies and the mineral companies, uh, they production sharing agreements, basically. Those are knocked out as part of foreign policy. That's how that works. So, there's always a public-private. My hypothesis is everything is public-private by the very fact that you have to get permission to set up your shop here in New York City and pay the city a fee. Immediately becomes public-private, but also through the tax system and it's very public-private when the fire marshal says no, which they will often do. No, we don't want to have a building that blows up. Your gas plumbing and connections aren't correct, and because you used. And oh, by the way, how do we know they're not correct? Well, you didn't use the right labor to do it. Done. Well, they're very good. Yeah. No, you didn't use the right labor. They weren't credentialed, and that is public-private partnership as well. And then the funding is almost always public-private partnership. To build anything in most jurisdictions, there's a payment in lieu of tax, a pilot. And how does that get involved? So part of the focus of this course is to get us out of the rather easy job of doing an evaluation of a company only based on the stock market. That's easy. Frankly, for me, that's dead easy. The models are all out there, and we learn them, and the triple or quadruple or quintuple periods of time in which things, which is old ways of doing things. Now we just use Monte Carlo for everything, with pulses in it and all that, which is what I asked you to do for I think last week. Put a pulse, put a shock in there, and see what happens. That is the way it's done. So what this course is asking you to do, what I'm asking you to do, is take a public benefits corporation, a B Corp, or an NGO. I've had people do the International Red Cross, Red Crescent, Médecins Sans Frontières, the Jesuit Relief Refugee Services as organizations. They're registered in the United States. They have lots of data, and they'll call you up, and they want to be transparent, absolutely transparent. I was going to do the Vatican because the new head of the Vatican Bank has said we're going to be completely transparent about everything, which is the first time in 2,000 years. Absolutely transparent, just like all banking, and it's swept through everything. That's just wonderful, because they're all over the place, as are other humanitarian organizations,
because we believe them,
and so on. So what a simple one to look at is something that I use every day, every single day, many times a day, is RStudio. RStudio is an independent, is a integrated development environment to do programming in R and Python and other things, SQL as well, and put together models and put together this entire course is actually put together on R, using other platforms, of course, but the whole thing, the website, everything is in R, 100% R. And you just launch it on, I'm launching it on Netlify. I'm trying to figure out how to do this on Google Sites eventually. But Netlify, it's all free. And that's where you're getting systemdynamics101.com from. That's being served from there. The point of this is that R is part of an organization called Posit, P-O-S-I-T, and Posit is a public benefit corporation. It's not Posit Inc., it's Posit PBC. That's how they're beginning to do this. And they, like another agency they're trying to eliminate the National Institutes of Health. When I was working with the NIH, they did something very similar to what the public benefit corporations do. They actually run an ROI on the tax dollar. So for every tax dollar granted the NIH, they said, here is our societal impact. The societal impact is, and everybody agrees that this is the right one, is how many years life extended per dollar have you done this year? And literally, that has always been there. And that was set up by George Bush with his performance appraisal approach in the early 2000s. He put performance appraisal into every agency. Every agency has to go through a ridiculously complicated process at times through OPM, the Office of Personnel Management. To get hired in the federal government is like impossible. It's very, very difficult, especially when you get to GS 12, 13, and 14. 15, there isn't a 15. You're SES. It's very, very hard. The process takes way too long, and they're all too picky because there are no slots for that. So I just hear some people say, "Well, it's about time they did something." You have no idea how hard it is to get into the federal government. Please, it's the impossible dream, and like there's like only like a 10% acceptance rate on apps or less. Just simple as that. But the performance appraisal process is very, very similar to what you would see in any corporation in this otherwise public benefit approach. And the performance is, it's like people profit planet. Yeah, there's a financial aspect. We're using our money efficiently. We're getting enough money to sustain ourselves efficiently for at least the next 5 years. Even Manhattan University has to write a letter to the Department of Education saying, we can sustain our organization so that we may open the doors each and every year in the fall. We're not allowed to even operate without that letter being approved the prior February. So a lot of checks and balances, a lot of controls in this public-private arena. So if you were to look at RStudio, you would get a very good idea. And what I wanted to do was try to bring. I had it up here and I can't find it right now. Posit PBC. I'm going to. Okay, just let me bring this up. And see if I can reconnect this. I'm going to share my screen just so you can get a feel for this. And then we'll go to the model. And there's a view in there that's blank right now called societal impact. And then I just want to walk through that for, probably about a half hour and just, mind meld a little bit here as to what's going on. Let me share my screen. And they're doing, as you can see, R and Python. That's a big move because they were exclusively R, but everybody loves the screen. And an example of the screen, here's the site. I write everything in here. This is where your news updates come from. This is called Markdown, but you can also do it. I think you can do a visual on this. Maybe you can't. It's rendering. The wheel means it's rendering. Over here, I can choose Python. No, I don't want to do that. I'm just going to keep that because that's going to take a few minutes. Over here, you can do 2. They're going to add more. There we go. Now I'm actually, no, I'm not quite there. And now I'm in Python. Automatically. This used to be a big chore. This thing called reticulate, well, Pythons are reticulated beings. A REPL, okay, what you see is what you get. And I can type in Python here. So this is huge for the developer. Makes life easier. A lot of things are connected, and I can do full documentation over here. I'm wondering if I have one. Acting on Bayes. So here's binary risk analysis. I can actually embed the code and do this. Now my son, who works in he's an enterprise AI architect and has been for years. He's laughing at a lot of the marketing going on right now with that. But he said pretty soon, when we talk, it's not Dad, it's Bill, professionally. Bill, you understand, you're not going to be programming anymore. I go, yes, I know. It's going to be, moving things back and forth, like an MIT program called Scratch. All right, so this is that's their main product, and everything is open source, as you can see. A lot of different products, and their job now is, and I can connect to Google Sheets for the first time now, by the way. And now there's a database piece, and Sparklier is a for machine learning is like cloud computing on AWS. It's unbelievable how fast things can be over there. So okay, you have all of this, and these are Posit community projects, okay, that they do with open source. So they have a philosophy of open source, lots of interesting use cases. NASA. Oh, Novo Nordisk. That's a really good one. I'm very familiar with that one. I'm not at all familiar with the city of Reykjavik. I would like to be touring, and they have all of this. Okay, so this is what they do for a living. This is the PBC. Now, do they get revenue from this? Yes, they do. There's if the Department of Defense wants to use RStudio, it has to, by law, actually, if we follow this anymore, it has to buy a commercial license. And there's a government rate for that. And they make revenue off of that. So there are products that if Morgan Stanley wanted to use R, they cannot produce anything in R unless they pay a premium. Period. End of story. And that's because when you go to the download, they ask you the primary question: are you using this for personal or business? If it's business, you must buy a license. Okay, there's a revenue stream. There are also other revenue streams from consulting because these people are very happy to show a company how to make this an enterprise product within the company. And their engineers will work with the company's engineers to do that. More revenue. Now that's a very narrow way of looking at the impact of this company, though. That's one very important impact, the financial one. Lots of partners. Oh, Snowflake, SageMaker. Oh my God. Okay, and lots of other ones. Okay, so they have all of that, learning and support. There's like an academy. That's a little bit scary. Knowledge-based cheat sheets. Their cheat sheets are outstanding because they're built by us. We, the people. We have very good relations with them, and I actually know many of the team. They always show up at my conferences that I happen to go to, the more data-oriented finance conferences. They're always there. Hedge funds use this. They love this stuff. And so on. It's how you use it. And it's about company and mission, the PBC report. There we go. Finally, Bill, you get to this. All right. Here's the J.J. Allaire, nice guy. I would love to work for him. I'm just not as smart as these guys in this domain. They're just unbelievable what they're doing. So it looks like a corporate annual report, doesn't it? A little bit. Okay. They have something called the B Lab, Impact Assessment Results. Okay. Now, B Lab is something that comes from the B Corp groups. They're beginning to systematize this. And it's something that the IRS loves, but they just got rid of the unit that does this analysis. They just fired them all. So I hope some of them can come back in another format. But they were working with these companies to figure out the right way to do charitable organizations, the right way to do benefits organizations that would serve the organizations and their clients, as well as the needs of paying the tithe to the government for its services and so on. So that's another conversation. Posit's assessments results are available to the public here. They've been doing impact statements for years. They get better and better. It's a certification process. Headquarters certified since 2019. And SaaS platforms. What do you know what SaaS is? SaaS. It's software as a service, and that's what they do. They're doing software as a service. That IDE is software as a service, as an example. Operates website, etc. Create free and open. So that's the statement. You can easily figure out what the value proposition is in here. Okay, reliably contribute. So primary purpose, are they meeting that purpose? That's a coherence question. Technical communication, science, data science, and so on. And here is to reliably contribute. Are they doing that? How do you measure that? Here's the rest of the metrics coming up at you. Millions of people have downloads. And repeat downloads. Okay, customer retention. They have a pretty high score. That's a high score. 92.5 is a very high score. There's an independent audit that produces this. Governance 17.7. This is the median score for all ordinary businesses in terms of their impact. That's awful, actually, when you think about it, when that assessment is done. So ethics and transparency, mission and engagement, these are all pieces of the scoring. So they're using a scoring approach to do this. Okay, and you can get more information if you want, from B Lab Global. So here's the overall. Okay, this is just the overall, and that's available to, and it's on this B Corp site, bcorporation.net. Okay, how many workers, how many countries, and so on. So it's gaining some traction. It's a very good governance tool. That's the other piece of this, and we don't seem to do very well in. It's still not much out there. Yeah, interesting. In terms of figuring out, I want to point Danone out. Figuring out, yeah, it profits is like, obviously you got to make a profit in order to retain earnings, in order to uh, 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 make investments today, which earn nothing but will earn in the future in scenarios that people believe will happen. Okay, that's retained earnings in a nutshell. No retained earnings, no growth. Period. Everybody knows this. So all your activities somehow have to be aligned. And this goes back to the mining incident in Chile. Those activities, will they be an as if investment in future operations that will earn them revenue against future costs? Now, you think of costs as you put a log in the fire and keep feeding the log in. The log is the asset, the cost is the fire. All right. It produces heat, which is the revenue. Cost is a depletion of an asset, basically. Assets, if you have assets, they produce costs. But costs must be related to the ability to pull in revenue. They can't just be pure costs, or else your equity on the other side degrades. So I mean, all these interesting things. For example, an investor-owned utility, at least in New York State, but most other states, if their book value of their stock, if their market value goes below $10 a share, they're declared insolvent. All right, and that's happened in recent years. And then agencies will put something together because it's acting in the public weal, in the public, for the public benefit, a utility. And that's why it's so heavily regulated as well. But it's an investor-owned utility. There's the public-private partnership at work. Danone is a company that if you wanted to look it up, you would have all sorts of interesting material. But we use this one as a case in humanistic management studies, where the economistic, pure economistic, Milton Friedman, New York Times, 1970, the only purpose of a business is to make money. And that feeds the whole economy. Well, it can't, because it hasn't worked yet. Even the big companies have realized that. There is a benefit to this, and this company is a very, very good example of sustainability in a number of areas, and then becoming even more sustainable. They're finding they're even more profitable now. Okay, that's part of the story there. And the other one I wanted to show you, Danone would be a good one to look at. Oh, Sistema B. Yeah, right. Business leaders. That's not the one. There's another one on here that I just want to point out. No. LinkedIn. Great example. Another great example. LinkedIn just started as a bunch of us sharing our resumes. Now it's job hunting. And it's now one of the best job hunting outlets. And it provides communication ability Again, the freemium model leads you to the premium subscription. So this is another freemium model approach, word of mouth, and it has exploded. If you're not on LinkedIn, you're not. It's like Gmail. Most employers say, "Well, I don't want to talk to you through Yahoo or MSN. I want to talk to you only through Gmail." There's a cyber reason for that one, among other things. But Gmail also allows you to get into Google Sheets and Google Docs and Google Slides and on, which is becoming the fast replacement for Excel. All right, in many companies, and they've been able to secure it through end-to-end encryption. Very important piece of that, and a huge public benefit. Google's beginning to thinking about sequestering some of their organizational elements into PBCs now. So I mean, it's an interesting movement. But LinkedIn is a great example of a platform. Chateau Lafite Rothschild. Yes, Rothschild. There we go. Saskia. All right. So let me pull this back. Hopefully the POSIX benefit report. We got the report again. Look at that. And I just want to do one more thing here. Okay. And they do, percent changes and so on. So this is, in a way, the MD&A, the management discussion and analysis section of the support. And they're looking at a number of different things. DuckDB is a really good one. Eclipse, they contribute to other groups. And the rate of their contribution is important because they're an open source. So that's meeting their goal. POSIX and its employees are giving $60,000 to over 100. So they're contributing what they earn across. I don't know if that's a big number or a small number. And DEI operations just come under extreme fire these days. But I just know too many CEOs who are going like, okay, this too will pass because diversity has absolutely. Now, this is not affirmative action from the 60s. This is diversity. Let's look at somebody from Fordham University and not an Ivy. In my case, I was not even allowed into certain areas of banking. That's why I went into commodity finance. What is called the white shoe people come from the Ivies. They did real credit work. And my mentor, Dick Proctor, says, yeah, don't listen to those guys. We're the people who make the world go around with commodities all over the place because otherwise they wouldn't have anything to make. So that was my pitch. Because I was from Fordham University, that is a DEI issue of interesting concern. But customers, governance. So you can read through this to get an idea of what your analysis should be producing. There we go. And I think that this MD&A analysis is a good way to do it. Is that JJ? No, that isn't even JJ up there. There are. Okay, good. Infrastructure and tools. They use this badge approach for all of the tools. Very, very useful, by the way. TensorFlow. They were the first actually to use that. TensorFlow is an array of arrays, which basically allows us to do large language models. Connectivity is a huge issue there. Tidy models, I love to talk with you about that, because that and the tidy version. Integrated development environment. That's what the thing I showed you. Look at that. That's pretty good. 5 FTE employees are producing all of that. Yeah. Talk about being efficient. Multi-language IDE. And SUBA, all the libraries. They're maintaining extensibility into the future and reaching into the past, which is really important for works that need to be done. Plot9. I do not know about this one. Oh, Plot9 is now putting ggplot into Python. I do not like Python because it didn't have this capability. It just has map. That's old school plotting there from Fortran libraries years ago. So just to give you an idea of how all of this works, and the sorts of things that a public benefit corporation looks at as societal impacts. Oh, see, this is a new thing. I don't know this one at all. I'm going to have to read these guys. Great Tables is incredible. And Shiny. I use Shiny to do the back at Mac. I guess it's the back at Mu now. The business analytics competition at Manhattan College, now Manhattan University. I built all of our interfaces to have competition artifacts in Shiny. And Shiny is a web serving, dynamic web serving front end that you can mount almost anywhere on any server. And we recently, years ago, installed this when the government was shutting down, and the state of Utah was wondering, how are we going to get our money to serve our customers? The GOP governor and the GOP, they're called federal funds, asked us to put together a model to show what the impact was of, let's say, Medicaid going away for 6 months because of a government sequestering that was happening. And that was, I think, in the Obama administrations, the government was shutting down. Remember who runs that supposedly is the Congress. They were shutting it down. And then it was brought back up. But it showed all the details of the impact of that on jobs, the state's credit rating, and state revenues. Those are the 3 big areas that they had to show for. And the legislative fiscal economists of their legislature had a commission, bipartisan commission, and they're still using the model today. Matter of fact, today is probably the best use of that model, with states scrambling for whatever funds there are. So Shiny was in the middle of that. It's on their servers in Salt Lake City, and they use it at every single hearing. Wonderful example. But all because of what these folks have done, hosted on Shiny Apps.io. Let's see, anything else? No, nothing else. Let me see if there's anything. So that's where we're going with this. I just want to look at the model briefly because there's the finance side of this in the model. Now, we've done all of the operations. We've done front, middle, and back office operations. It's all there. The manufacturing, the adopters, we've done all of that. Now let's see, can we pay for this stuff? Basically. All right. So Larry is out in about 15, 20 minutes tops. You're still boarding early, right? There we go. I think so. Hey, Christian, how are you holding up? Okay, good. All right. So let's look at our model. And I have this model, and I play with this a lot because it's basically the model of Manhattan University, but it's also a model that I built at Deloitte when we were putting Deloitte University together with cohorts. There's no cohorts in this model. I want to put cohorts in it eventually. So we have a 3-year cohort program in most client service organizations. You're brought in as a analyst, you become an associate, then you become a senior associate, and then you're up or out usually. That's typically what happens because we make an assessment there at year 3 of your ability to continue to be a consultant. And if not, and you had great performance nonetheless, we'll often situate you with former clients because they love you. All right, that happens like 90% of the time that their clients want our people because they know their operations intimately, and then they go over to the other side, and then they come back, and so on and so forth. We have experienced hires, and eventually, it's are you officer material, or are you going to be non-commissioned officers? Okay, that was always the decision, and we had 2 tracks eventually, and so on. But the core of this is a 3-year cohort. So you come in and you stick with your cohort for the next 3 years. Sounds like in undergrad, 4 years, or in MBA, usually 2 to 3 years. We want to track you because you're taking courses, building skills cumulatively. And each course level builds up on previous course levels, 500 to 600 to 700. We don't have 700, but we should because we're a university now. And most programs would do that. So you have 100, 200, 300, 400 level courses at the undergraduate level. Again, we run it in a cohort, which is a very interesting thing to model. But I did not model that here because I felt I was getting into trouble with somebody. Clients. Okay, so this is where the cohorts. We have potential clients, waiting clients, feeding in by flows, and clients. Over here, I have net income and cash flow. They're very similar. I wanted to show the financial difference between the two. And they follow a sigmoid curve. Clients down here financial growth. And here, on clients, financial growth. Okay. Backlogs. So this is kind of a little bit of the marketing operation, the marketing decisions ending up in enrollments with backlogs in this particular model. Okay, so we have people who are accepted but can't go in yet because we don't have the capacity. Typically, this might even be very low. Re-enrollments, that's a possibility. So in most freemium models, you want to have the idea. I think we could show this to Posit and they would understand what was going on here. But they would have the freemium view, and they would probably have called, let's see if I rename this view the premium view. And we would build a premium view model here, very similar to the this original client model, which I'm also going to rename the freemium view. Okay, this might be the freemium view. So they're not paying anything here. Down here, these folks will be paying something. All right, so there we go. Now, operations, this is the capacity, enrollments, and so on, backlog. Now, capacity probably is also, in our case, even at Deloitte or at Manhattan, faculty, experts who can teach. We always, at Deloitte, we would rotate people, line people like me, in and out to teach 3-week courses. And that would be part of my continuing education credits, which were required, as well as others. Okay, so we had a good mix there. And I would also be attending some senior seminars about, you know, what legal language to use this day from the Office of the General Counsel type things. But look, we have time to adjustment, capacity adjustments, investments, and reductions. Same idea as the asset side of a balance sheet. Now you need to make this a little bit more sophisticated with the public-private partnership of a mining accident, and you're bringing technology transfer capacities, as well as hard equipment capacities, as well as people to run things capacities in that Chilean mine accident case, average enrollments, and so on. So you can build all of this or just call these different things in your own models, doesn't matter. But the rub today is this one. Oh, there's also a value proposition and societal impact that are empty so far. And here we go. Just look, principal repayment, interest payments. So there's some borrowing going on. So here's equity. Here's debt. I once did one of these for a collateralized debt obligation structure, and it scared the bejesus out of people. Oh my God, because you could actually see things evolving and where they would collapse very easily because you put a pulse through it in some part of it. That had a mezzanine structure, so there were like 3 kinds of debt, but the book value is the residual structure, and this is the riskiest one. Depletable. Okay, this is more of an accounting model approach. So this is how things get paid. Donor contribution per enrollment. That's really for the freemium model and to support all the rest of the models. And you have potential donor pledges here. You get a committal, and then effectively you have a receivable because you're going to get it in pieces. So when we do this in Manhattan, alumni say we're going to promise $29 million to the School of Business. The School of Business does not see $29 million all at once. You produce a proposal. It hits that 29. It's accepted. It hits that 29 million. Million comes out, and then you receive it over a year. Okay, so there's a receivable involved, and some people back out. Yes, entirely possible. This all gets mixed up into what is called depletable income. So think about what that might mean. Okay, the depletable portion, depletable book value that declines. Okay, and this becomes depletable income. And we make interest payments for depletable income. And this hits net income. And you get NPV income, NPV cash flow. They're very, very similar here. The difference is probably how this depletable income comes into net income. Okay, uh, and you have to trace where that comes from. That's that's an exciting um, exercise for you to see why income is different from net present value. Both seem to use a discount. Both have a net cash flow, but where's cash flow coming from? All of these pieces are in the net cash flow. Okay, and then discounted. Where's the net income coming from? This notion of depletable income. Now, this depletable income is a concept in a lot of public organizations like government and so on. That's why I included it there. Uh, but you can see it's the same. Here's the stuff coming in. Okay. Here's the residual value, if you will. The investment capacity costs coming from somewhere. Where's the investment coming from? Oh, it's got to be coming in from operations. Investment. Yep. And all of this gets wound up in, and capacity life. Ugh. All of this gets wound up in donor finance. Okay. And then we can show how cash flow will work over time under different conditions. The one that's kind of interesting here, let's do this. Let's see. Okay. Discount rate doesn't even change things, hardly at all changes things. Down here, a little bit movement, a little bit of movement. What was the one? Time to depletion. Just changes the bend and the length of the bend. Okay. Capacity cost. Okay. Debt financing fraction. The percentage. This is the capital structure question. Is a debt financing fraction. Higher fractions, lower fractions. So that makes sense. And if the debt becomes an asset, that's how banks work, you can actually model that with this. It's a matter of who owes what. And debt retirement, fractional loss rates, contribution by donor is interesting. Dollars per program. Variable provisions. Okay, so you get this kind of banking up approach. What will make this interesting is if you put a pulse anywheres inside of this. Right? The finance side isn't that exciting. I gotta tell you, it's just not that exciting. But if we go up here to the freemium model, average enrollment times, come on, you can do it. Okay. No negatives. Crazy stuff. I got some interesting curves over here at one time. Contact rate. Okay. So we got this hockey stick approach in all of this modeling. There's committal fractions seem to rule everything. Okay, now we got something interesting. So this is the commitment to enter the program. So you put a down payment on it, right? What happens down here? The finance wraps around that committal. So it looks like the most important thing is getting people to commit to you and to recommit. And these just change. This is like a tuition rate here. Okay. More changes occurring because of that. So that with that committal rate, that tends to, wow, oh, losses are changed. Okay, we get these, all this stuff changes because of that committal rate. Well, does that not make sense? So, and then the contact rate on top of that has a very narrow band. And the normal delivery rate doesn't do any, does a little bit of stuff here. It's changing the scaling of things. Okay, and this is what you do. You play with this model, number of initial clients. That's just a scaling as well, a translation. And enrollments per number, how many. Gee whiz, this is really not. Doesn't do too much. Okay, it'll change with the capacity. A little bit more modeling is needed there. But again, the committal fraction seems to be the key. And so for me to freeze this at 27, there we go. Not worried about that. And there we go. Net income and cash flow. One is going to go ahead of the other. Not too bad. But I'd be worried about cash flow. I would care about this. There's a differential. That depletable income is an interesting idea. That needs a little bit more work. But anyways, we're pretty much at the end of our time here. Again, my purpose was to go through what a public benefit corporation looks like and what to look for there. And secondly, look at a very, very, very simplistic model of such a, in spite of the fact there's a lot of arrows running around, simplistic model of such an organization to get an idea of cash flow generation, the financial growth piece, and how it actually, these two things are very related. As a matter of fact, you might want to run a graph of clients and cash flows, okay, to look at that impact. And that might be a very important decision point here. And down here in what is the value proposition? Well, that's something you want to formulate. What, um, but it's going to come back to societal impact. Now, societal impact for this group is, um, what is our reach into the community? How many clients are we able to serve per donor dollar? How many? We might even want to ask the question, effectively, how many donors do we have? And what's the donor contribution per donor? Okay, we might need to model that. Um, and in terms of enrollments, how many people are we getting through the program? And in the educational environment, that's how many degrees. In Microsoft measures certifications. They want to make sure people are using their products safely. If this was laser surgery machinery at Alcon in Fort Worth, they have exactly the same stats for societal impact. How many surgeons have touched our machinery? How many have gone through, and surge techs have gone through, and how many hospitals, and so on and so forth, use our, and then how many come back and use it again? Okay, these are probably the more important ones. And then we go down to the finance. Uh, how many uses per hospital? How much revenue per use? Will give you your revenue growth immediately. So those will be the two signals you'll be looking at. Let me come back here. And release Larry from his bounds here, because I think you're boarding. Or are you delayed?
No, we're not delayed. I'm just waiting for them to call my group. But yes, let me get going.
Okay.
So this was definitely like, wow, that's a lot of like perspectives of input is just off the charts.
Yeah, this one is a tough one. Very, very tough. Imagine running an airline with this model. No,
No,
no.
no, to keep in track like hours of pilots, hours of flight attendants, the maintenance, the runtime, you know,
It's
the
crazy.
different airports, the different towers. No.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. Just one last thing. I think it was 1989, 1990. I was with Mike Vandermillen and Ken Fordyce at Kingston IBM, and they were running a supercharged version of Fortran side by side with APL2, and they were running the flight attendant model.
Wow.
It never solved up to that point, and we weren't expecting it to solve. We were just running it. It's solved. They solved the problem. It's a huge assignment problem, right? Of
Wow.
assignment of crews, and it wore out some equipment, thermally wore out some equipment in the building. So they figured out what to do with that. We
Wow,
told
that's
Morgan
crazy.
Stanley this, and they went nuts. And
Oh, I'm sure.
yeah, right. You can imagine the application in the finance area with this.
Oh,
And
yeah, without a doubt.
yeah, we sold a lot of uh, ingots of pig iron. They called their machines pig iron. Underneath the desk of every portfolio manager, there was a machine running this
Wow,
stuff.
that's nuts.
Yeah, so it was the
So,
beginning of client server. That was the other story there. So and they gave away a lot of it just to get it's the freemium model. They gave away a lot, and that comes in as a cost. And the bigger the cost, if it's
the
going to
bigger the donation.
bigger the donation,
Right.
the tax break.
Yeah. So, all right,
Okay. Okay.
Chris, I'll be in touch with you this week.
All right. Sounds good.
All right,
Okay.
later, guys.
All right. Take care, Larry. Chris, do you have any questions? Or are we pretty much
Let me see.
Don't
I
too
think
much.
we're good. I caught up with the other assignments, so those are in.
Excellent. I'll go check those out for you, and look forward to putting the highly proficient tag on each and every one of them.
Thank
Uh,
you.
Very good. So you and your group are able to talk and get everything that you need done. That's excellent.
Yeah,
That's what I'm hearing
of
from that.
course.
Okay,
And so I'm just looking over the project one more time here. B
sure.
Corp. Um, use the models, okay, six step. Okay, so basically what we just went over in the lesson is kind of the structure for the corporation model that we're trying to
Right.
pick here. Okay.
Yeah. And you can change the names to protect the innocent,
Yeah.
instead of donors, you could say, investors, it doesn't matter. And it's not a bad model for a startup, actually. I can feature this, except I would want to have had the put option in.
Yeah.
Instead of donors, it's going to be venture capitalists.
Yeah.
Uh, and they're going to be fronting everything because you're not going to be making money for the first 5 years.
Mm,
So your net income is always going to be negative technically, but your cash flow will be wonderful because they're
right.
keep throwing money at you. But how do you put the sell option? What's the trigger for venture capitalists to get out? We had a key partners uh, model. The number of key partners, uh, they come in and they exit. So there's an exit, and then there's a dollar amount per key partner that then goes into the equity fund, the donors fund, and then hits book value and so on. So the accounting can all be done within this because it's all related to one another and also related to capacity, which is the huge issue. And capacity is related to clients being served. So when you mix that three body problem together, obviously it's going to be complicated just because of the different
Oh yeah.
connections.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And so if when we're working on this with my group member, is it okay if we upload the basically the same I guess it's we're gonna be doing it together, I guess the for the model?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, this is where collaboration is the key. If I have any questions, I'll quiz each and every one of you. But what I have found out is everybody's very transparent about the uh, specific contributions, and so I can figure out what your specific grade would be in performance in the course. So that's baked into the course itself. But I want you to talk to somebody and work it out with them. You're going to get much more out of this, especially in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
It's not a game of solitaire. Yeah, definitely workshop. And I'm hearing all around those who are doing this. The other teams are going like, if we didn't talk about this, we wouldn't be able to do any of this. I go like, yeah, very short time frame, especially requires. But this is what you do at work,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
or at play. I mean, so it's all building each other up. Cool. So yes, you may.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
All right. Okay. So I'm going to stop the recording and thank you very much for your attention through all of this.